Why are we meeting? Why are we meeting this way? What do we actually need to use our meeting time for? When and why do we need to meet face to face? What can be accomplished one-on-one with email or via phone or text? So think about it. Why are we meeting this way? Who are the customers of your meeting? Who are your meeting's internal customers? Who are your meeting's external customers? What do they expect from each meeting? How do you define and prioritize these expectations, and how do you know if the execution of the meeting and the meeting results meet those expectations? Few think about these questions relative to meeting execution. It's all quite amazing to me, actually. Teams seem to be formed without a challenge these days in spite of the cost. It used to be difficult to get people to work together that way, to solve problems that way. But now it's a costly habit. It seems to me that many people think that by forming a team and holding meetings, we are actively solving the problem. It demonstrates due diligence. It shows that we're doing our job as managers. But if the group is not effective, however, we could be making things worse in many cases. Consider giving each of your meetings the value test. Ask the question, if I stopped holding these meetings, or if we met for just half the time, would our customers notice? Don't hold meetings for the sake of meeting. In fact, I advocate not forming a team unless the team's focus meshes with the strategy of the organization. How will this team's efforts help us achieve our goals? Each strategic objective should probably have a focus team, but we don't need to have managers and supervisors going to 3 or 4 weekly update meetings every week. We don't need to have focus team meetings that are always an hour long or that are always every month. Look for opportunities to use technology to your benefit here. Stop reading to people in meetings and instead have them read and digitally sign the content prior to the meeting. Hold people accountable for doing their meeting pre-work. You pay people a lot of money. Hold them accountable for doing their meeting pre-work. Use well-designed agendas to define the customers of each meeting and their expectations. Show how the meeting is intended to help better meet the expectations of those customers. Serving as a Baldrige examiner for 20 years taught me some unbelievably valuable lessons in this area. Consensus must be reached at multiple process points, over 50 process points as applications are reviewed. It's probably over hundreds of process points. Examiner teams can have more than 10 members at times. And in the past, before technology, we tried to achieve such consensus via phone calls or via faxes that could last up to 12 hours, broken up over multiple days. But as technology evolved, we found ways to use virtual consensus to share information, review work to date, and contribute our thoughts. Currently, we've reduced meeting cycle time requirements by 50% in many cases, while also coming up with a more collaborative product and a product that better meets the need of the customers. The key takeaway here is simple. All project work does not have to happen in the meeting. The cost of meeting waste. Personal time. Wages and benefits for each team member is lost. This could be as much as $500 per meeting hour in wages alone. There's an opportunity cost. If we'd wasted the time in the meeting, what did we avoid being able to work on? If we'd not wasted the time, what else could we have worked on? And then, worst of all, did we do any organizational damage? What impact does meeting waste have on morale, alignment, and resource misuse? Meeting waste is significant in most companies. As I mentioned before, I feel at least 50% of all meeting time is waste, and I think that waste estimate is conservative. I'm not even considering the extra meetings we hold or the extra teams we have when I estimate that waste level. Poorly managed meetings cause significant morale damage in most companies, to the point to where few people actually look forward to going to meetings. Meetings are actually a joke. What is the real cost of meeting waste in your organization? Here's some very common examples of meeting waste. So first of all, here's some ways to waste meeting time. Like we need a list, but see how many of these ping with you. First of all, we repeat information for latecomers at the start of the meeting. We fail to reach consensus and go over things multiple times. We read to people, either off the slide or off the paper in front of us or off the tablet in front of us. We don't use an agenda. We base decisions on opinion only. We damage relationships and morale by discounting the contributions of others. And we don't do regular process checks to make sure we're staying on track and maintaining a positive group climate. Now, people, when I talk about meetings, I say you need to track meeting defects, and they look at me like, well, what's a meeting defect? Well, here's some very common examples I've seen. Going off on tangents, going off the agenda. Ground rule violations, and we had some example ground rules at the very start of this workshop in lesson 1. Exceeding time allotments, either overall or for given agenda items. Individuals dominating conversations, becoming long-winded, not allowing others time to talk. The flip of that is limited contribution. People do not contribute enough, and everyone should contribute. We start and or end late. We fail to achieve the objectives of the meeting, and we discount the contributions of people that share information in the meetings. Very common meeting defects. How often do you see these in the meetings that occur in your workplace? How do you track and reduce meeting waste? Here's some ways to use meeting time wisely. And I've broken them down into in-meeting tasks and between meeting tasks. So first of all, how do we spend our time during the meeting? Do we use dialogue and explore assumptions? Do we reach consensus? Do we draw diagrams and pictures? Do we have high volume interactions where there's a lot of back and forth? That's good meeting stuff. Here's some between meeting stuff that unfortunately often makes it into today's meetings. Information sharing. Developing proposals in the meeting. You know, we should develop proposals in between meetings, get pre-approvals in between meetings, and then finalize things when people are face-to-face. Do your idea pre-selling between the meetings. Do your data analysis between the meetings. Don't go in there cold with a data set and expect the group to watch you work through it. Cruel. I informally survey hundreds of people a month as to where they feel they waste the most time at work. Meetings consistently head the list of responses. In most cases, even though these people state that a lot of their time, as much as 50% or more, is spent in meetings each week, rarely is the effective use of this time measured. You know, as we went through the pandemic and we were working remotely, it wasn't common for my customers to say, well, I have to talk to you at the start of the day before the meetings start. And it was almost like once you hit this magic time, you're in meetings the rest of the day and you lost your travel time between meetings that you even used to have. And that truly happened in organizations, and that's so sad. Culturally, we've come to believe that going to meetings is what managers and supervisors do. It's how you show due diligence. It's how you show responsibility. That's so sad. Meeting attendance serves as evidence that we're doing our job. Actually, meeting attendance could show you're not doing your job because you could be doing much more valuable things with that time. I don't buy this argument, but it does represent a rationalization for time waste that many of us use. It's convenient out for some people. I'm not saying that all meetings are a waste of time. I feel and know that meetings are a key tool in the Process Excellence Toolkit. Plus, I've spent enough time in meetings and observed meeting behavior enough to know that we waste a lot of the time we invest in getting together with one or more people to discuss something. Oh, I need to talk to you for 20 minutes or so to discuss something. That's wasteful. And if we want better work-life balance, we have to focus on that type of waste. I consistently see people waste time by going off on tangents, failing to manage behaviors that hurt group dynamics, and reading to others. I see people come to meetings unprepared and then sit there for an hour not saying anything. Worst of all, I know that we don't teach people about group dynamics management and engagement like we used to, which means it's going to be hard for the skills to get demonstrated. Years ago, you had to not only know about concepts like groupthink and the process content model, but you also had to know how to address process problems. Many of today's meeting leaders and members have never heard of these concepts, even though meeting process problems result in a lot of wasted time. What types of team member behaviors, poor decision making, and agenda misuse waste your limited time? Because meetings are a process, they inherently contain waste. To identify your meeting waste, begin by identifying your most common types of meeting defects, and I gave you some examples to start with. The easiest way to find these defects is to look for ground rule violations. In order to find ground rule violations, you have to have defined ground rules, and at that point, some teams go, oops. Does anyone remember when we used to have those? Meeting management system. Meetings are a process that many people invest a lot of time in each day. Meetings also represent one of the key work processes where effectiveness is rarely measured and where we rarely trend that effectiveness over time, let alone improve meeting effectiveness over time. However, this can be done. Meetings can be defined, measured, analyzed, and improved in the same manner that frontline work processes are. And I don't put a C here for control because I don't believe you reach a point of control on meeting defects unless you can live at zero. So we're always trying to get better, and because systems are in flux, team membership is in flux, team mission changes over time, focusing on define, measure, analyze, improves one of your best strategies. This loop lists the different tools and techniques that you can use to improve meeting effectiveness. And so there's 4 tools that you can use to define your meeting management system. 3 approaches help you measure meeting effectiveness. 3 key approaches help you analyze your meeting management approaches, and 3 techniques can be used to improve. Since you've probably not treated meetings as a process to be improved, there's probably a lot of low-hanging improvement fruit you can pick there. The 4 defined tools lay the groundwork for effective team performance. They're requisite for improving team effectiveness, and they must be in place for team effectiveness to be realized. They're also key tools that are part of defining next generation leader standard work. What gets measured gets done. When we fail to measure, when we fail to trend, when we fail to review meeting execution factors at the process level, which I mean every meeting, you're not going to be able to achieve your team effectiveness goals. If we capture key costs and counts, including defects, however, at each meeting, we can start reviewing our patterns of performance over time. And I'll tell you, so often just reviewing the performance points out the problems to people. They self-correct the behavior. We get new habits in place. And then you can actually maybe reduce your measurement frequency to more of a sampling approach, or stop it altogether because we know what to look for. We know how to manage the meeting process. We each take responsibility for doing so. We hold ourselves accountable to following the ground rules. We don't have to have a team leader or another team member do it for us. Analyzing meeting performance trends and defect levels, even for just 15 to 20 meeting cycles, 2 to 3 months. That will help you spot performance patterns and help you identify high leverage areas for change. You might want to form a meeting effectiveness improvement focus team to help coordinate and deploy your meeting improvement efforts, but I prefer to teach all meeting leaders these techniques and let them work it from the inside out. Teams will self-correct their behavior once they see the data and once they know the expectations. Most importantly, change your meeting system to obtain and sustain better results. Work systems shape work cultures. Without work systems change, people regress towards their old behavior patterns of simply showing up, sitting in the chair in the meeting room, and repeating such actions meeting after meeting.